Call to order.
Mr. Goodler.
Yes.
Mr. Whittington.
Yes.
Mr. Payne.
Yes.
Dr. Payne.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Yes. Have a moment of silence. Thank you. All rise for the allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is agenda changes and additions. Dr. Fox, is there any changes or additions?
No, sir.
Next is approval of the agenda as presented. We have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
And I have a motion from Mr. Painter and a second from Dr. Painter.
Mr. Mansell.
Yes.
Mr. Payne.
Yes.
Dr. Payne.
Yes.
Mr. Goodler.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Yes. We have to do the certification after we come back out of the second closed session. On to citizen comment period. Do we have any?
Would you like me to go ahead and read the two online ones while we wait for?
Yeah. What did I do with that thing? I gotta read this first. Here we go. You'll get it. The Page County Public School Board welcomes citizen comment during regular meetings. School board members do not respond to public comment. During a meeting, all comment should address a matter related to Page County Public Schools. The school board will not hear public comment that involves individual student-related matter, the disclosure of which would violate applicable confidentiality requirements. The school board expects that each speaker will be courteous, modeling for our students how one can respectfully agree or disagree with others' views. Speakers will address their comments to the entire school board and not to one individual school board member, nor to the superintendent, staff member, or the audience. Speakers will have 3 minutes to present their comments from the podium.
Amber Jewell from Stanley. I think it needs to be addressed if the schools will be giving vaccines to the children or if it will be required. I shouldn't have to fear my children going to get an education or worry that someone will vaccinate them without my consent. I'm going to go ahead and stop and say we're not vaccinating any students, especially without consent of the parents. Toby Longenecker from Luray. Hello, board members, Dr. Fox. I want to again state the importance of continuing with live streaming meetings as well as allowing for comments to be submitted electronically. It was previously suggested before to limit the word count to match the 3-minute in-person limit, and the comment link now limits the word count submitted, so it's already been set up to continue. This allows for more community members to be involved, which could only improve the school system and the community. If reading the comments is too laborious, which is completely understandable, another option would be to simply display the letters on the screen for everyone to read to themselves. Although I do suggest a larger font than is used on the financial reports. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
that complete those, Dr.
That does.
Payne? Thank you, Dr. Payne. And we have an in-person public comment. Please state your name and your address for,
Mr. Jordan Cho. Address is redacted. Y'all know why.
okay.
But I did put it on the form for you if you need to contact
All
me.
right, thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Fox, members of the board. It's been a long time since I've been able to make it to one of these in person with my spouse's work schedule. So one of the things that I really want to talk about is the participation information that you're going to be discussing this evening. Some of you have had correspondence with me regarding, access through the electronic portal that's available. And I just want to remind everyone how important that is, not just to allow more people just to get in, but work schedules, also people with disabilities. I'm a person that goes non-speaking. There are days that I literally cannot use words out of my mouth. So not having access to written communication and the ability to submit in writing keeps me from being able to access and other disabled members of the community as well. So if we want people to be able to participate in the public, purview, then we need to be able to account for that for those people. And one small note, just something to consider. I've noticed, not tonight, but in weeks prior, that sometimes by the time all of the information is up to review the agenda, because, it takes time to get things together, they may not get up till 2 or 2:30. So if we have to have a 4 p.m. comment deadline, which I completely understand, I don't know if there's a way to speed up that process for some of those agenda items. The other thing that I want to discuss is Edgenuity. I know that the board, the staff members, the teachers, the students, everybody is facing a lot over the last year and a half. I know multiple families that have pulled to homeschool because it is inaccessible, particularly to students with disabilities, and that's the reason they pulled to homeschool. These are people in my own neighborhood, and I know multiple families. I'm also going to point out that the homeschool version of Edgenuity has a lot more features that I have been informed are available to schools, but maybe at a premium. I understand cost constraints, but I think that y'all may have inadvertently been swindled by Edgenuity's marketing, and so I would strongly encourage you to reconsider that platform going forward. How am I doing on time? Okay, I will try to fit this in 37 seconds. The last thing is, we keep talking about the transgender stuff, and I noticed that in the sex discrimination policy that everyone has done a great job of trying to make sure that we include gender and gender identity. I'll also point out that page 1 of the handbook does not mention gender or gender identity on the face, although it's sprinkled throughout the document. To that end, as part of sex discrimination, I would like people to consider that if we are assigning people to bathrooms and facilities based on what we assume that their genitals are, then we are, in effect, completing sexual harassment. So,
Time is up.
yes.
Thank you.
And if there's an opportunity, I can continue that, depending on if the board has allowance for that based on the number of speakers.
It's a pleasure.
Final thing?
Okay, they're willing to continue.
Thank you.
3 minutes.
Yeah, 3.
Oh, yes. I won't need 3. There are 2 things to consider with that which may help with this process. One is that most things that say his or her are in fact binary. That does unintentionally, through no fault of no one's, intent, exclude people that are non-binary or agender or dual gender. Just something to keep in mind. Using a word like their includes everybody regardless of their gender in documents going forward. It's a paperwork change, but a simple change. And just something to consider. If someone gets a terminal degree, I know we have some doctors that are here, or someone gets married and takes their spouse's last name, that change to, Mrs. Jones is instantaneous. People don't have an issue with that. They may only need to be reminded once, maybe twice. Whereas a person who is transgender or a student of transgender parents that comes in and tries to explain all of this stuff ends up in a situation where people are like, I don't understand. Can you explain this to me? Where they have to explain and justify. But if I had a doctorate tomorrow, no one would have a problem calling me Dr. Cho. So I want to put that in as a perspective and encourage the board that as inclusive as they have tried to be with our current policies, to go ahead and continue to be brave and adopt that model policy for transgender students so that we can go ahead and make sure everything's level across the playing field for all students. Thank you.
Thank you. No others. Okay. We'll continue. We have to skip the consent agenda because there's two items. One's personnel and one's with the minutes. So because we haven't finished, we'll have to come back. We'll move on to the informational items, and that's the superintendent's update. Dr. Fox.
Yeah, thank you. So good evening, everyone. I will ask you to indulge me a little bit. I've tried to incorporate some of your questions that you've provided to me over the last couple of weeks. So it is a little bit longer this evening. But what I thought I would do is with each section, I'll stop and we'll take any questions for that because it is several different pieces, not all of it flowing together in one piece. I just wanted to start tonight with some thank yous. We want to thank our bus drivers for National School Bus Safety Week was last week, so we just wanted to take a moment to thank them for the great work that they do each day in keeping our students safe and getting them back and forth to school, and let them know that we appreciate them and the work that they do for us each day. The same is true. We wanted to celebrate, this month was also the Virginia Farm to School Week, was in the beginning of October, and in the crunch heard around the world. We had local apples distributed around all of the schools. Everyone had a good time with that. So we wanted to thank our food service staff for, during Virginia Farm to School Week, they did incorporate a lot of different locally grown items into the menus, and had some homemade items that week as well. So we're appreciative to them for that hard work during that time. And then finally tonight, we also just wanted to extend a great thank you to the PCPS group for their donation of 1,700 reusable water bottles this year. Pretty much any student in any of our buildings who wants a reusable water bottle can have one. And that's cut down on the plastic waste. It's cut down on the cost for us as a school division to purchase water bottles. And so students are using the water bottle filling stations that are in the school. So we're grateful to PCPS for their contribution in that regard. And then now I'd like to just walk you through some of the health data like we've been doing previously. So I brought back your slides. So this is the daily case rates, and you can see that decline. You saw there that the peak there was in the middle of September, and that's when we were hit hard here, and you're seeing it start to decline. So we are hoping and praying that that continues to decline in that direction. In terms of for our community transmission rate, we're still in the high zone. We have come down some, however, for the total number of new cases per 100,000. Since we met earlier in October, you can see that rate's been cut almost in half. So again, we're hoping that continues to decline, and maybe we get back to the moderate or the substantial or the low very quickly. In terms of PCR tests, that's jumped up just a little bit over the last couple of weeks. You've seen some of the news stories and some of the information about that sort of trending back up. We again hope that doesn't continue and trends back down. So what that does is those two indicators have put us in our level of community transmission is, you can go to the next slide, please. We're still considered in the high, so we've got a little bit of a ways to go in terms of getting back down to low. So I just encourage everybody to continue with those mitigation strategies everywhere. They are keeping us safe right now, and we hope and continue to keep everybody safe. In terms of vaccine coverage, again, we've seen small incremental increases over time with the vaccine rates. We're currently, as a community, Page County is sitting with adults 18 and over who are fully vaccinated with 2 doses. We're sitting at about 51.3%, and the state is sitting at 70%. And so you can see for our 12 to 17-year-old students, there's been a little bit of an increase there. And then the rest of your age groups, you can see the smaller increases that are happening. But they are increasing every time, so that's good news in terms of that. In terms of level of school impact, just a reminder for this chart, how we look at those three variables: transmission within the school, we look at student absenteeism rates, and we look at staff capacity. The next slide shows you right now, all of our schools are sitting in the low range, which is good. It's nice to be back there. We had some moderate to low last time, and now we're sitting with everybody being back in the low. And I do have a couple of new charts to show you. So thank you to Mr. Pitts for putting these together. But this is September with our positive cases. And this is just mapping them out. The line at the top, the blue line, is our students. And the red line at the bottom is our staff. So again, you can see that peak in the middle of September. That's when we went through that really challenging time where we had lots of kids either positive or quarantined and staff in the same, and we had to close the schools for that. The next slide shows you October positive cases, and you can see that decline there. It's popped back up a little bit. Again, we're going to continue with those mitigation strategies, but we're hoping that that trend continues to go back down or stays low, sort of where it is now. Mr. Painter, did you have a question?
So they're test positives, not quarantines.
Yes, the first two are positives, yes.
They're positive.
The next two I'm showing you are quarantined.
Okay, all right, perfect.
So can you go back one? Yeah. So this is the September quarantine, so same thing. Blue line is students, the red line at the bottom is staff. So again, you'll see that sort of peak up there for the students in September, and then where we landed at the end of the month. And then the next slide shows you October, where that picked up and sort of how we've seen that decline. So that's a good sign that that's declining. That means kids are in school. We're able to keep them there. We hope that that continues to come down even more, because we can get that number even lower. So just two new ways to kind of look at. We're going to continue to track this data. And over time, probably maybe in January, we'll start to put it together to show you the month at a time. But for now, we decided to keep it separate, just to give you a sense, because I think October paints us a nicer picture of where we'd like to be. And hopefully November will be an even nicer picture of where we go down. We're just, we are getting ready to hit that winter season, more time indoors. So we're just encouraging everybody to really put some space between themselves. I know it's not what everybody wants, but wear a mask if you have to keep yourself safe in some of those situations. Any questions about that health data before I start talking about vaccines?
Like those last couple charts, very good.
Yeah, we've got some others. Mr. Pitts is working on some other data for us that we'll share with you, but that just helped give, I think, a better picture. And talking about attendance a little bit later on, that can show you why September there were so many quarantines. You saw it in our...
Is that something that's also being published to our website?
No, that's just information we have in the back end that we're using with all of our different data pieces. The COVID dashboard, I didn't put that up there for you this time, but the COVID dashboard is still being updated every morning with information. That's on the public basis.
No, we're not tracking hospitalization. Right?
No, I think that's been minimal,
Okay.
but not in this public data, no. But we have them when we get that information, we have it in there.
Part of that's going to be underneath HIPAA, so.
Small numbers, I would say, small numbers for us, but we have had some. All right, COVID vaccine clinics. We are, if you guys have been following the news, the FDA has recommended that the vaccine be made available for students or children aged 5 to 11. It is a 2-dose Pfizer vaccine that's given 21 days apart. What we are recommending is that if parents have any questions about the vaccine, they can reach out to the Lord Fairfax Health District, or we recommend they talk with their child's healthcare provider. We are simply providing the information. We are not giving guidance on whether to administer a vaccine or not. That is not our role. We have, though, coordinated with, to move to the next slide, with the Lord Fairfax Health District to be able to provide a vaccine clinic. We're going to provide 2 of them. One at the northern end and one at the southern end. It is free of charge and open to any child 5 to 11. They do not have to be a Page County resident. We want as many children vaccinated as possible. A parent or guardian does have to provide consent, and they do need to be present. So we can't come with aunt or grandmother. They need to be with the parent, and the parent has to be present for the whole procedure. So the first one is going to be at Page County High School on Monday, November 15th from 4 to 7 p.m. And right now, the follow-up dose for that would be on December 6th. The second clinic will be on Wednesday, the 17th at Luray High School, same time, and their follow-up dose would be on December the 8th. We haven't published the times for the follow-up doses because we're going to wait to see how many we have. The time might change a little bit. Rather than being 3 hours, it might be 1 or 2. But we'll push that information out.
I have a question.
Yes.
It might just be a typo. And Wednesday, November 17th at Luray High School, and then the second dose is at Page County High
Yeah,
School?
thank you. That is a typo. I'll fix that. Yeah.
Okay,
It
so
should be at Luray.
So if you got it at Luray, it's still going to be at Luray?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes. We will fix that before we post this, but that's correct. Yeah, we wanted to try and make it as accessible as possible. And, I just want to take a minute to thank the health district. They're providing everything, all the staff, everything. All we have to do is make sure the building is open and accessible, and they're providing everybody to do everything. So we want to thank them for this partnership and for working with us to get these set up so quickly. And also to the high schools for making their facilities available for us. As you can imagine, high schools are always busy, so finding a time when they weren't was a challenge, but Mr. Pitt's got them knocked down and we've got all of this sealed up and ready to go. So we'll push that information out to families later this week so that they can plan for that if that's a choice that they're making. Again, I want to reiterate what Dr. Painter said. We are not ever going to give anyone a vaccine without parents' consent, nor are we requiring vaccines at this time as a school division. So I just want to make sure parents understand that if they want to come to this, this is a voluntary event that we're just helping to support and provide the location. The other two things we're working with the health district to do are potentially on those same nights, offer initial COVID-19 vaccines for anyone 12 and up who may not have been able to get them. They're working on that. There's some concerns about the different vials being mixed, so we're going to take their lead on that. But we just thought if families are going to be there and someone wasn't vaccinated, this would be an opportunity for them to get vaccinated. We're also working with them to provide a clinic for staff to get the booster. Right now, there are a couple locations. I believe you can go to your healthcare provider or Walmart actually was doing the boosters. But we want to try and provide that in a really accessible, quick way for our faculty and our staff. So we're looking to coordinate with them to do that very soon. So any questions about vaccines? All right, attendance information. Just have some basic information for you right now, just to give you a sense of where we are. These are our year-to-date attendance rates. So this is taking in from when we started to September 30th. And you can just sort of see the percentages there. My understanding, and I'm working on getting last year's or the year before's, because I think the year before will be a better sense for the first semester. Just to give some comparison, is these are a little bit lower than we normally see. And that's to be expected. We've had a lot of kids out on quarantine. The state has provided us with the option that when students are out on quarantine and we're providing them with virtual instruction, which we are through Schoology, as long as they're engaged in that instruction in some way, we can count them as present. So we're coordinating right now with the schools to make sure that all of that's being consistent. That's the end of the quarter last Friday. So we're going to go back and make sure all that information is accurate and that students who did indeed participate in instruction on those days get marked as present. So I suspect that we'll see some of these rates change, but we'll keep working to be consistent with that over time. But this is where we stand right now.
So right now, this includes the folks that are online and doing the work. When they're-
Our virtual kids,
Yes.
you mean the ones that are all
No, I'm
virtual?
talking about if they're quarantined.
Yes, this includes that.
Okay, so that's why because I would think those numbers would be lower.
No, they're actually, because again, as long as they're participating and doing something on that day, they get counted as present.
Right. But if you took that as numbers out, it would be much lower, I would think.
You might go up some, actually, because because there's quite a few right now that haven't been marked as present, even though they've done their work. The teachers are going back this week and updating that. Because now it's the end of the quarter, so they've gotten all that work in, they can go back and make sure that those kids get marked. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it kind of makes sense, but I digress.
I think when we see the quarantine start to go down, we'll get a better sense, like, this is a hard number to pinpoint right now because you've had so many absences at so many different places. So it's something we're definitely keeping our eye on attendance. We're going to push out, I think we've got to communicate more with parents and kids about the value of being in school and being present for school. And we'll talk about grades in a minute. I know that's a concern for some folks. But we'll definitely keep our eye on attendance. Any questions there? Grading update. So the first thing I wanted to share with you is just a couple of looks at some letter grade distributions. These are just basic distributions across the board for classes this is at the high school. So every class that records a grade, how many A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's are we looking at right now for the first quarter? So this just gives you the basic distribution. You can see the A's are on the left all the way down to the F's. We'll break this data down a little bit more, look at our core classes, look at on-core classes and things like that. Right now, this is a compilation of all of those together, just to give you a sense of where we're
And this is on the 50.
This is on the 50. Mhm. So that's your high schools. The next slide is your middle school, similar sort of distribution.
Whoa, it's a big jump in Fs for middle school, page middle.
We're working with them. We think some of that might be tied to the quarantines, and we're digging into that a little bit to see where it is. It is in a specific core area, is it an on-core area? What is it? Is it contained a specific number of students? There are some students there who have multiple Fs, so they're on our radar in terms of working with them to help. They're on it. Their administrators are looking at it, and we're providing support up here from the central office level. And then this is the elementary schools, and this is just grades 2 through 5, showing you their grades there.
Ray has a high F number.
And I think that also goes back to their attendance. If you look at that, I think there's some gaps there because they had a lot of kids out, and some of that quarantine and some of that work has been made up. Some of it hasn't. Some of it's struggling to get caught back up and then getting back on pace with instruction.
Ray and Springfield.
Yeah. Well, even between Luray and Stanley, might be more comparable, but or even Shenandoah. Luray's a little concerning.
I think you remember, well, Shenandoah had a high number of absences as well, but I think Luray got hit hard there with the quarantines as well, with the closure. All right, so the second part is now referencing, you all had made a request of us in September that we start to review the 50% grading practice. So here's where we are right now with this information. We talked back, I got some history from staff in terms of where sort of this all organically came from. So back in November of 2019, there was a committee that was convened to talk about grading practices, not just the 50%, but a wide range of different topics related to grading. That committee consisted of some central office staff, teachers, counselors. There were references in the notes to parents and students being involved, but I think because some of the meetings didn't take place, it may not have expanded out to those groups. They did have meetings in November and January, and then February there was an offline where they did some reading and watched some videos related to grading. And then COVID hit in March of 2020. So that committee stopped meeting. Some of the topics that were up for discussion were talking about monitoring and reporting grades, determining grades, grading protocols and procedures, and that's where the 50% started to come up. It was picked back up last November, so a year ago. The division leadership team started having some conversations about failures that were happening because related to COVID, and particularly at your high schools where they were seeing high numbers of failures. So they picked up that conversation again. And it was there that a division-wide decision was made about the 50s, so that no assignment could count less than a 50%. That was implemented in January of 2021. Sorry, that's a typo too. That should read January 2021. That was this past January, was division-wide. No assignment could count for less than a 50%. Information was communicated out to staff in late November, and then they implemented it at the semester because that's the time to do it when you have the end of a lot of those high school courses on the 4x4. It's a smooth break to make the change now. There definitely were some inconsistent applications of that practice across the division. You saw some teachers giving 50s only for like homework assignments, some teachers giving 50s for everything, some teachers not giving 50s. So there was definitely some inconsistency in the application, and I think that's led to a lot of the frustration that we see right now. In September and October of this year, when you all brought it up, it came up at the school board meeting. We've gotten feedback at each of our school recovery committee meetings. There were ones held at the elementary, middle, and high school level. We asked them to give feedback. I definitely got feedback about it at my first teacher advisory council meeting in September. Good feedback, though, very, very good feedback from teachers. And then we discussed it last week in our division instructional team meeting. And that's where some of this history was shared with me and some of the things that had been done in the past. Our next steps, we need to hear from all of the teachers. Probably the very first thing I heard at the Teacher Advisory Council was that teachers didn't have a voice in that decision. It was just sort of unilaterally decided that it would happen. Now, there were teachers on that committee initially when some of the discussions happened, but last year when it was decided at the central. We need to hear from teachers. We need to hear from students. We've already gotten feedback from Page High School kids. They talked about it in their seminar class, and the teachers captured those conversations for us a couple weeks ago. Luray High School is doing the same thing with their 9th through 12th graders to give us their feedback on it. And we need to hear from some parents about it as well. This goes back to the attendance piece. We really need to communicate and push out more with parents about the value of being in school and why students need to complete assignments, whether they think they should or not. There's value in those assignments. And then we're going to move forward for now, because I'm going to show you my recommendation next of where I think we should go. That 0 be entered for incomplete work until we resolve this, because the 0 can then be a notification to both students and parents that something is missing, it's not completed, and they need to do that work. I think part of the problem is a parent might see a 50 and say, oh, they've done it, but the assignment hasn't been done. And what's important is that the kids do the work. We need them to do the work because that's part of their learning. So we're going to recommend from now till the end of the first semester that we put that 0 in there as a placeholder, and I think that will help teachers, it'll help kids, it'll help parents understand what's going on. So my recommendation at this point, where we are in time, is to get this feedback that we just talked about from those 3 stakeholder groups. If any decision that we make, to me, it makes sense that it not be implemented until the end of the first semester. Because you're in the middle of a semester right now, and if you had some grades are based on this process and some weren't, now you've created a disparity between those two. So a clean break is at the semester. So that gives us November and December to have these conversations, make a decision about this, put everything in place to make the transition in January if the decision is to move back away from the 50%. One of the biggest concerns for me, if we move away from it, which, that's probably likely going to be the decision, but I think we still need to get those voices and hear that. We need a plan in place, because numerically, the piece that kills kids is in the first quarter or the second quarter, if you end up with, 35 because you just didn't do your work, you didn't apply yourself, you didn't do what you needed to do, numerically you can't pass for the year. And that's a bad place to be for a student. It's a hole that they've dug, and they have no hope now for the rest of the year. So they're going to either give up, or they then become a behavior problem because now they're bored and they're not engaged with the curriculum. We just need to have a plan in place on how we can bolster those kids moving forward to help them recover. Owning and doing the work, it's not a free ride, but it's coming up with a plan on the back end to make sure that we have a way to give those kids hope, so that if they do mess up in the first or the second quarter, there's still an opportunity for them to pass for the remainder of the year. So that's just a personal thing of mine, is that we have this plan in place to support those kids moving forward. That'll be part of our conversations as we, if the decision is made to move away from the 50%. So I think that's, any questions about that? Anything I can clarify for you all with that?
I appreciate you looking into that, and I like the idea of if they don't do the work, a 0 is going to go there, but if work comes in, then that can be calculated in and so forth, because they need to understand you got to do it. Yeah, if you need help, you need to ask for it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you going down to the different levels and wanting to get input, not just from central office. I mean, I know things come up, but getting down there and talking about that, and I think you've gotten a lot of good comments that's led you to that conclusion, they have that support for the student. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, I'm curious to hear.
I think
the-
you experienced fatigue typing that one.
You beat me, Doctor. I was waiting.
So each school, there's conversations going on with staff, with students.
We've kept the student just to the secondary high school.
Right, okay, that
Yeah,
makes
so
sense.
both the high schools, Paige has already done it, Lorraine's getting ready to do it.
Okay.
But yeah, staff will be K to 12, parents will be K to 12, and it'll be voluntary.
Sure.
You know, if you want to provide your feedback, you'll have an opportunity to provide that. We'll just push those out in surveys, and try to
Okay,
communicate to get that feedback, because I know surveys, but we'll get the feedback that we need to get, and then take that into consideration as we have
Thank
those
you.
meetings. Okay, so teacher morale, whatever that word is supposed to be, burnout. I guess you're right, I wasn't hired when I said that. My apologies for that mistake. Just to, you know, at this point in the year, teachers and staff really have been asked to do more and more and more. COVID is definitely impacting the way education is moving. Some positives we've learned from COVID, but there's a lot of things that now just fallen on teachers' plates, and it's making it just that much more challenging. I will say that this year is very, very different from last year. And last year was very different from any of the previous years we've had, but there really is no comparison to this year and last year. I think this year is much more challenging for teachers. Everyone is excited to have kids back in the building. It's a good thing, but with it comes a whole lot more challenges. You know, they're stressed and concerned about recovering that lost learning, because that's what they're hearing is we've got to get these kids back up to snuff and get them back where they need to be. They're doing a lot of assessments. Some are district-based, but a lot are state-based, and that takes time. It takes away from the instructional time, but those assessments are giving us good information about where kids stand in terms of their learning and where the gaps are. But it's just another challenge. The new growth assessment, grades 3 through 8, just added another dimension to things that teachers had to do in a very short period of time. We're seeing new and unique challenges with student discipline across the board. Everybody is reacclimating to school, and that's presenting its own set of challenges for teachers. The management of student absences. You saw the number of students quarantined, so it's just challenging for teachers to keep up with all of that. It's so much work in the background to find those assignments and make sure kids have turned in the things they need to turn to communicate with students and parents when work is missing. And the quarantining and students being out sick, that has just been a huge challenge for them. They're definitely learning new things. We've put benchmark in place this year for them. That's all new. They've got to learn that it's new. Last year, they had to learn Schoology. They're still learning Schoology. So those are just all things that are adding to their plate. And time is the one commodity for them that's in short supply. We're trying to do some things on the back end to address their mental health and their well-being. But time is the one piece that's critical and can make a difference for them. Many of our staff members are spending their evenings and their weekends just trying to catch up, or even just, I won't even say get ahead, because I don't know that there is ever any getting ahead right now. It's just trying to catch up and be in front of some things that they can be. So the question for you all tonight, just to talk about, because it's happening in school divisions around us, people are being creative and coming up with different ways to try and provide student or staff with some additional time, is just how could we give our teachers a little bit more time during the school day? So I've got a couple options for you. And I just want to present these to you all. You give me some feedback, and then we can go back and talk about different options that might be out there. One of the options that we've already done and we will continue to do is we've scaled back on some of those professional development days, giving them more work time in their classrooms rather than sitting in professional development or doing things that are scripted. We've already been doing that. We'll continue to do that. There's 3 options that you could potentially look at as a way to give back a little bit of time during the 3 days. One is consider potentially maybe an early release day, like on a Wednesday. You release early 2 hours, and that provides them with a little bit of time each afternoon. You could consider an early dismissal each day for 1 hour, or you could consider a late start each day for 1 hour. I think we really have to weigh the impacts of that, because it's nice to be able to say that we want to give that time, but we would be remiss if we didn't also consider the impacts of that.
On the professional development, now I know a lot of that is a mandate from the state and wherever. Would there not be consideration from the state because of, to take some of those professional hours away and let them be used for more planning or whatever? I mean,
For the most part, most of the professional development that we're doing on those days is we control it locally here. Things that are state-based, we're doing those, they're trying to do things like webinars in the afternoons rather than during the school day, or they're making them recorded so you can watch them at any time, anywhere. If there are state-based things that folks have to go to, it's mostly central office staff that are attending those, so it's not necessarily that. The yearly relicensure things that have to happen for staff, those are taking place, but again, a lot of those you can do on your own time, and many teachers try to take care of some of those in the summer. Folks that are up for relicensure, if they haven't gotten their required 180 hours, they're definitely having to do and find ways to get that professional development in so they can get their license renewed.
and I guess there's not been any discussion, or it's probably would never be considered, but SOL tests. I mean, the state, in my opinion, should say, we're not going to test this year, because again, students are in school and they're getting used to being in school again. Everything is already showed, the double duties that, teachers and everybody. State needs to reevaluate this, and just to have kids in school and being there, who cares about a test? I mean, I really do think that they need to consider, and if we need to talk to our legislators or whoever, I think we need to do that. That would make more sense, to get acclimated, get back in, routine, instructions going on, maybe next year based on what goes on, but I don't think this year it should be considered.
Well, I think SOLs play a great role. The test, it gives you a data point. Now, whether if we could be held harmless, that might be a better option, is being held harmless like we have been. Because I think you need those data points to know and guide you to where you need to go. But being held harmless like we have been in the past, I think is the key. So maybe that's the conversation that as superintendents meet with the state superintendent, that you guys can have with the state superintendent, that then can take it to the governor, who waived
Take it to the polls on Tuesday. How about
Yeah,
that?
so, so that's a consideration, is something, a topic that could come up among the superintendents with the state superintendent.
Yeah, and it has, it definitely has, because everybody's concerned about accreditation, ratings. And, one of the responses we get is that they weren't, the VDOE hasn't been given the permission at the federal level to offer waivers. They can only exclude if they're waivers or take it to the General Assembly. So I will say to you, superintendents are advocating that get taken to the General Assembly like it was in March of 2020 for that consideration.
And I understand what you're saying, Mr. Green, with, not being held to a score or something, but at the same time, they still got to test, and the pressure's on. We got to make them, even though they may not count, it's still the stress, and it's stress on students, and it's stress on the teachers and all that. So again, I'm not an SOL, I haven't been for years, and I think it's a wasted time of money. There's other ways to evaluate what's going on in the schoolhouse, but we won't get into that. So I'm glad to know that at the state level, superintendents are
Or discuss
having
it.
those discussions.
I would be curious, on these potential options, where did they come from? Just general practices around us, or is it something that came from the staff?
I would say both. Some of them are, like, for instance, a staff member brought up, next Tuesday is a PD day. We've made it a remote that day for staff, meaning they can complete their PD at home. It's virtual. That came from a staff member.
Okay.
Last week at a meeting, so we're grateful to her for bringing that forward. These others are from some of the things that have been happening around us regionally. Those are some examples of other solutions. And then the talking about a late start in the day was a solution we talked about internally here. Just looking at options of what can we do, because you got, you only have a window. You can either start it late, end it late, or do something like that. There's no real in-between of it. I don't know that there's another way to give time back other than those options.
You got a potential to do this as a survey and get feedback?
We can, because
I would be interested in that myself.
from staff or parents or both.
Staff and parents, yeah, both.
Another impact would
And
be
then we
if,
could Potentially both of them.
If you did a late start, you have kids that are hanging around at home
Right.
that didn't get their breakfast.
Right.
And then you get them to school and you feed them, and an hour and a half later, you expect them to eat lunch. That's
Unless you
always,
could, manipulate that a bit and maybe move those times. There's a lot to consider if you do late arrival, but it's doable. It's just an option. So, Mr. Painter, we can certainly get some feedback, because one of the concerns and potential impacts is what impact would this have on families?
Mhm.
You talk about a 2-hour early dismissal every Wednesday, that puts strain and stress on families in terms of what do they do, especially with the younger children.
I think the kids have been home enough. I mean,
And I think you'll hear that from parents. They just want their kids in school. We also, we have to be careful and be always mindful of those 990 hours of instructional time that we're required to do for the state. So that would play into this. Any hours that you take off have to be deducted from that. And then we also, I think we would be remiss if we didn't say we still have weather that we might have to contend with in the winter season. So those are things just to consider if we're going to make a decision about early dismissal or something. We just want to keep that in mind. What you did see around the region is they didn't do it for the rest of the year. They did it for a period of time, like from November through December to the end of the first semester. And then they'll reevaluate it and look at it there. And the other piece for us is transportation, just looking at, anytime you make a shift and change to start or end, there's going to be implications for transportation. And some of our staff in transportation do work other jobs, and so it could have implications there. Just some things to consider. I would appreciate your feedback in terms of where you would like us to kind of look or pursue, or if there are other ideas that you might have. We can certainly add a quick little survey question out there to get some feedback.
The other thing, I know you're pointing to the 990 hours, and I know that's related to either upper or lower elementary or secondary, because I know at secondary level you have clock hours per content area, and you're already asking for a waiver from the state because it's reduction from what was required. So when looking at that, you have to consider that one as well. And I know at the elementary, it's less than that. I think it's 760 hours, I believe, in some of them. So I know it's different. So we have to be cautious that one pill doesn't fix all of it. So fixing it one place is going to create a problem in another place, because you're already asking for a waiver at the secondary level, I believe, because of the clock hours there is per content area and not based on the whole day.
Right. But I think we're okay. I think we meet the 990 based on the periods and the amount of minutes we have. I'll confirm that, but I believe we're
But
okay.
also at the secondary level where it's 40 clock hours per content area.
140, yeah.
Okay, 140. I knew it was 40. Okay.
But we've got, Mr. Benson has a spreadsheet, and we've got those hours on there. We'll double check, and we're always checking to make sure, because we don't want to be in a deficit there with our clock hours for our instructional hours. Any other questions on that? All right, I just wanted to give you guys a couple of pieces of key information related to nutritional services. Currently, our food deliveries are, they typically come on Thursdays. That allows the staff Friday to be able to sort through, because you don't always get what you order. Especially now with shortages, we definitely don't get what we order. Those deliveries now, due to their issues, they're having a problem staffing drivers for the bus, the trucks. Those deliveries now are sometimes not coming until Friday. So that inventory is getting checked, and then menus have to be changed and adjusted based on what is coming in on those deliveries. There are availability shortages of some items. The supply chain across the country is impacting us here in Page County. One of the current items that we're having a hard time getting are hamburger buns, believe it or not. So our staff are actually baking buns from a pre-made dough that they've been able to find and order. It is resulting in a slightly smaller bun, and we just want people to know that, because they're going to notice a little bit of a difference from what they might have had 2 or 3 weeks ago to what they might receive in the next couple of weeks. But those buns still meet all the nutritional requirements. They're just going to look a little bit different, but that's in order to still be able to provide the hamburgers and the chickens to the kids every day, so that we don't have to pull those things off of the menu. They're also looking for these items from other sources, but right now everybody's looking for those items from other sources. And they are introducing other menu items such as a biscuit dog to replace the buns so that we can put the buns at, say, the secondary level so the high schoolers can have the chicken sandwiches and the hamburgers. And the younger kids might get something like a biscuit dog, which is like a pig in a blanket. So the staff are trying to be creative and using all the different tools that they have to overcome some of these shortages. Because of that, the weekly menus are not being finalized until that delivery comes in, because we don't want to publish a menu and then constantly have to change it. So they're trying to update those menus as quickly as they can on Fridays and get them posted on the web pages by Sunday so that families can plan for the week ahead. We're not currently printing those menus. I know we got a lot of calls, parents want that printed menu for the month. We just can't do that right now because there'd be so many changes, and I think that would more than frustrate parents if they have a menu on the fridge, but that's not what's being served. So we're updating those on our web pages. What we have added is a quick link, and I'll show you that in just a second, to make it easier to get to the menus. It's 2 clicks now, and you'll see the menus for the students, so that should help parents find them a little bit more easily. I also just wanted to update you from something we said we would do back in September. We have had several of our central office staff have been cross-trained and are now, I think we just have to do our internship, as it's called. We've got to go into the cafeterias and now work in there, but we've had the preliminary training in the background to be able to help out in the kitchen should there be some need. So we're looking forward to getting into all the kitchens and doing that and being able to help at any time if there are shortages in staff.
Before we move on, the weekly menus. For me, it doesn't make sense doing the menus the way it's being done. And maybe it's just me thinking in my head, but if you're doing an order on Monday that's getting delivered on Friday for the following week, to me, that's not enough planning. I know in another division that I worked, that menu was done the previous month. You knew what you had to order. You order it the week before. You know it's there, and the menu is going to be corrected. So why are we ordering on one week, expecting it to come on Friday to affect the following week? Why not bump that up to?
They're trying to get a 2 week ahead, but the manufacturer, that's just the way it's working right now with the supply chain. They can't guarantee anything more than a week out.
Okay.
So that's where they've landed with that. So it used to be they order on Tuesday and come in on Thursday, and they had at least a day and a half to kind of try to figure out what they were going to do. They're setting the menu for the month, basing the orders on what's available, but then they just have to make sure it's up to date on that Friday, because sometimes you'll order hot dogs and they don't come in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just unfortunate right now. They can't be ahead of that game too much. They're trying to get, like, she is optimistic, Ms. Jeffries, in the next week that we might actually be 2 weeks ahead because of the little gap in time next week with Monday and Tuesday being off. We might actually be able to get a menu out for the following week as well, but we're not certain, and we don't want to push that we're going to be 2 weeks out if we can't guarantee that. So right now, we're just saying the most we can provide is 1 week at a time. If we can get to extending it beyond that, we will certainly push to do that. But right now.
Okay.
So I just wanted to show you really quickly, this is the new quick link dining button that you'll see there. So when you go to any school's page, if you go up to the top to the menu, click on that first. And then this quick link button will be at the top of that menu. Click on dining and it takes you straight to the menus. And then you can pick your level, either breakfast or lunch, and it'll open up those menus for you. So 2 clicks and you can now have access, whereas before you had to go to Nutritional Services and work your way through.
It's good.
So I think that'll help parents be maybe be a little less frustrating in terms of where to find it. If we can smooth that out even more, we'll continue to find ways to smooth that.
Perfect.
Just a couple of additional updates for you, and then I have one more thing, and I will stop talking for tonight, because I know you're tired of listening. But I did want to just give you an update I had brought to you in late September that our school crisis emergency management and medical emergency response plan was going to be updated. We would meet in October. Unfortunately, we had to reschedule that meeting, so I don't have an update for you tonight. We're rescheduling that meeting in November, and then I'll present to you the updates to the plan in December. So I just wanted to not let October pass without giving you an update on that, because I said I would bring that to you tonight. The VISTA testing program for COVID-19, We have not yet been matched with our vendor. That's the next step in the process is the VISTA program picks a vendor and we match, and then within 2 days, the process begins. We're waiting on that match. And then we are having our consent forms are being vetted by the school board attorney so that once we do have that process, we have our vendor, we can rock and roll. And again, testing is consent has to be from the parent for that testing. There are a couple of additional grants that have been introduced and published that we're going to be looking at to see if we qualify and can apply. These are competitive grants, so they're not guaranteed to the division. A lot of the ESSER funding is just each division gets an allocation. These ones you have to submit an application for them. There's one for addressing unfinished learning, one for before and after school programs, and one for summer school programs. The applications are due November 23rd, and there was a guidance webinar that came out yesterday. So we have staff looking through those to figure out what we might be able to do and apply for. So we'll keep you posted on that, where we go, and then let you know when we've submitted them, and then hopefully we'll get some feedback pretty quickly that we might have some extra funds to use for different. Questions on any of those updates?
Very fun.
You're welcome. So the last thing I have for you tonight is the Make a Difference Pinnacle Award. This is something new that we're going to introduce to staff. And it is just an award where any PCPS staff member can nominate a peer for just work that they say is exceptional. Could you go to me? Thank you. And I want to caveat this because I got some really good feedback from a teacher who said, you know, she, because I asked the teachers on the advisory council to read over the criteria and look at this for me, and she gave some good feedback. She said she's just worried. She doesn't want staff to think that what they do every day doesn't meet the qualification of exceptional, or that what they're doing isn't good enough because we have an award like this where we are recognizing people maybe for going above and beyond. And that is not the intent of this. We don't want anybody to ever think that the work that they're currently doing, especially right now for students, with students, for families, doesn't matter or isn't valued. This is just an opportunity. If I see a colleague of mine doing something that I find exceptional, I can nominate them for this award and this honor. So again, any employee is eligible to receive the award or to nominate someone for the award. A small committee of staff will review the nominations and select award recipients. We have some criteria that we've set up. We're going to recognize those recipients. We'll go to their school or to their office and just have a quick little award ceremony where we'll read what the nomination is for, and then give them a little award, something that they can put on their desk to show that they've been nominated and have been given this award. And there'll be a fall and a spring nomination pool. Fall nominations will be due by December 1st, and spring will be by April 1st, and then in May we'll give them to the winners, and then in January we'll give them to the winners. So we'll roll this out to the next week to staff and let them know, and the nomination forms will be available. So I just wanted to share that with you all as a way to just acknowledge some of the great stuff, because there's a lot of really, really good stuff that's happening in our schools, on our buses, in our cafeterias, with our custodians, with everybody who's working hard in our bus garage and our maintenance staff. This is an opportunity to just recognize some of that work. So that's everything I have for you tonight. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Fox. The next item on the agenda is policy review. It's B, D, D, H, and KD. Same policy. And then we have the B, D, D, H-R, which is our regulation that goes along with the policy. And there too, also you have to have the same regulation for the KD. And that should be in the packet that the superintendent passed. And this is at Dr. Painter's request that it come back on the agenda for review. You have anything to add, Dr. Cox?
No, I don't. I don't. I think one of the main things that came up last time was it's not expressly shared in here that the comments would be read. So I think we might want to make a clarification in here. Either we're going to say that they will be read, or we say they might be read, or they won't be read. Just as a point of clarification, I think that was one of them that came up in the conversation last time.
So can we make a capital letter? Because written comments is sort of different, and it's just different. Like the one lady left us a packet on lunch stuff. So that's her written submission that she would give. So the online comments, I think, has to be a different bullet. And it might be just that, online comment. But what's the board's pleasure about the online comments? First, I'll ask the question, do you want to keep them or do away with them? That's the first question.
I personally don't mind if we keep them, but I don't want to have to read them every time because, I mean, you saw how we might end up with 36 comments one time and 2 the last 2 times.
They are put in the minutes, so they are made as if they came and spoke. But every word of theirs are put into the minutes. Whereas if you come and speak, not every word gets into the minutes. So they are published, and I understand some have the issue that they're being published, but they're not published in the time enough for other people to be able to read them. So the other issue is how can we also make those same public comments available for the other public to be able to read them before they're approved in the minutes?
Well, what's the purpose of citizen comments? Is it for us? Is it for Dr. Fox? Is it for everybody to watch it online?
I think the public comment, for me, in my opinion,
Citizen comment.
is for the citizens to let the board know something.
Yeah,
And we have availability to read.
because we're the audience.
We're the one.
We're the audience. That's just a point I'm just making.
Oh, I get you. Yes, I agree.
Well, 2 things now. They can come to the meeting, or they can watch virtually or what have you. So they've got 2 ways of being at a meeting, whether it's online or here. And you can't meet every need. Again, they come here or send it in because they want us to be aware of something.
But it's the issue about reading it. I read them, and I read them again when I read them in the minutes that we have to review. So actually, I read them twice. So,
And actually, it doesn't matter even if we read them, because if it's something that we can't control, we have to forward it to the central office person that can deal with it, because we don't get in the weeds.
I'm not supposed to. Yeah. So what's the pleasure of the board?
I would say we shouldn't read them. We should be consistent and not read. But they should be part of the record like they currently are.
All right, so recommendation is that they remain part of the record. However, they're not read publicly in an open meeting. Did I get that, Jeff?
That's correct.
Okay, so should we vote on that?
Well, I think there's other things that need to change in here. Mr. Longenecker brought up the point about, about how you can just sign up to read again. It says if time allows.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when do you limit that? Because like last time and tonight, we let a speaker speak more than once.
Mhm.
So next time, let's say they're hot about lunches or something again, that a lot of people want to come speak, and they're like, well, last time they got to speak twice, I'm not done, I'd like to speak again. And then it just, if we want it to be clear, we're going to have to make it clear.
It's got some ground rules.
Well, and I also will add, there's nothing in here that says you can't submit an online comment and come to a board meeting, so that's in a sense, you have 2
double.
opportunities.
You have 2 opportunities.
But if they take that time to type it, I'll read. But who's going to sit then and say, oh, nope, you signed up, but you've already written one.
So maybe we set a number, say we have 10 people waiting to speak. 5. So we just set a number and say, okay, if it's 5 or it's 10, then you get one shot, 1 3-minute shot.
Well, it says that we generally allow up to 30 minutes for public comments. If there's a large number of speakers, the board may limit the total time for comments and or may reduce the time allotted for each speaker.
Maybe 10.
So at that 3-minute support would be only 10 speakers being able to speak. And that means if you have 25, then you take the 30 minutes and divide it by 25, and that's how many minutes or seconds that they get to speak.
I think we need to be consistent. If it's a 30-minute limit, then we don't this time say, hey, we can let all these people all these people now can come speak, because if you do it that time, you need to do it every time.
Right.
It's not just whether it makes us comfortable or uncomfortable to hear it. I think it's just being consistent.
I love engagement, and I can't, I go to a ball game, people coming up talking. Anywhere you go, people can reach out to us individually and tell us how they feel. We read it in the minutes. I'm for just, we ask kids to come back to school full time. And parents can come back here and speak, or a concerned citizen can come back here and speak. I'm with Mr. Goober. That's make it part of the record. We don't have to sit here and read them out loud for everybody else, because they're addressed to us.
Yeah,
We're getting them.
We're the audience.
We're the audience here. And we've asked our kids to come back to school.
Okay.
So what about the 30-minute piece?
Well, if you got 30 minutes set aside for them to speak, then if you got 10 speakers, they get 3 minutes each. That's your 30 minutes. But if you got 20 speakers, somebody don't get to speak.
Well, or you do a minute and a half.
Or you do it a minute and a half.
Yeah. Well, very seldom somebody's going to get their point.
I'm fine with dividing it up by 3 minutes max, or if it's more than 3 minutes per person that's out there, you divide it up.
Yeah, it's written in there like that, but it's like, are we gonna actually follow our policy?
Yeah.
Because we've not been following it here lately.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is our job, follow policy, right?
Right. And be consistent.
Be consistent.
And what about that they can then turn around and speak again? Once you speak, you spoke, and that's it?
I think they should only get one
I was
opportunity,
gonna say, once you do it,
because it says on here that you can sign up for each topic that you want. So speakers who wish to speak on more than one topic must submit a separate request for each item. Well, if I really want to be a pain in your rear end, I'm going to Amy Painter, and I'll spend 3 minutes just hounding you on one thing. And then, because I'm just like that. But
We understand.
I'm just trying to make a point.
Yeah. No, and there are some
There's
that,
other people like me that would do that.
I haven't seen that. I never thought about it that way.
so that brings up the other issue. Is it allow them to speak on, because the speaker tonight spoke on, I think, 3, when you're only supposed to speak on 1. So do we allow them for the
But we
3
don't
minutes?
know what they're going to say before they get up
Yeah,
there.
so do we allow them to speak on anything for 3 minutes?
I think
If
that,
it's,
I think anything.
I don't-
I think
I'm okay
that's
with
the way to go.
yeah,
Because you can't.
You're going to drive it in the ground in 3
Right.
You
minutes.
can't control it anyway.
no, so if they talk about 3 different things and they get in the 3 minutes, that's fine.
I don't care.
Yeah.
The other issue is, then are we allowing them to come back the second time around? If
I
we
don't-
strike that,
That's a current loophole.
yes,
We have a loophole in our
If
policy.
you start it, it's gonna be expected.
yes.
But that's just,
I think then in the signing up to speak, you just make it that you're only allowed one
3 minute,
opportunity to speak publicly to them.
Right.
1 3 minute.
I wouldn't say 3 minutes, because we got up there about time limitation.
one time.
One opportunity to speak.
One
That's right.
opportunity
That's right.
to the next meeting.
Or they can email us.
Or they can online
Emails.
They can always email.
at any time.
Exactly. And as many words as you want to use,
Right.
there's no limit.
Yep.
As much as they want to type. Okay, so are there any other suggestive changes? Now take from what we've done,
So if we're not reading it, we don't have to put a limit then on the online one.
no.
So if they want to write us the book of Psalms, go for it.
Unless
Do you
you
want
want
to
to
take
keep
the,
it consistent with somebody coming here.
For 3
and
minutes.
Only speak for 3 minutes.
But we're not reading it aloud.
I keep it to 3 minutes. I keep it to the word.
Just keep the
restriction
word that you
got.
have.
okay, so if we're gonna keep it at the word restriction still, not talk on it, not read it, but it's in part of the minutes as if they showed up. Because the new form does put the character limit on it, and it's large enough that it does count for if you use a big word or short word, it doesn't matter. It's, gives you extra space, so,
And how about if you want an extra opportunity to speak, you have to sign up for a substitute date. We're trying to get subs.
Funny, that's funny.
okay, so take time to review this, because I know as I read through it, I'm gonna find maybe 1 or 2 other things that I may not mention tonight.
Okay.
So read through it, make your notes, get them to me or the superintendent, and we'll comprise it together. And then when we bring it back to the next meeting as an action item, hopefully we'll gather it together from everybody's thoughts and inputs, get it back out to you to review, so you'll know, yep, I said that, yes, said that, Dr. Pena wanted this, yes.
So let me get this straight. You're gonna send us a revision for us to make feedback on.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so that way we're covering everybody's thoughts, everybody's got in there, and we have time to physically actually review it deeper with deeper thought than just now. So, and, with due diligence and of us and for the public who wishes to speak. So, we'll make those changes, or Dr. Fox will make those changes, and we'll get those to us, and we'll make our comments, and then she'll redo it and get it back to us as a final review before we bring it to us formally and vote on it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to emphasize is that these public comments, we're the audience for it. It's not everybody else. It's for us to
Yeah.
hear.
And I know somebody in the past that said, well, my comments weren't heard by others. Well, if they're meant to be heard by others, come and speak, because it's really for us to hear it, because that's why you're here. So if we're reading them, we understand and we can take that concern into consideration as we make decisions. But why does someone else need to hear it just because?
There's plenty of social media they can post the same comment.
Oh, and they do.
So
So,
if anybody wants to have fun before this gets passed, just come sign up for a bunch of different topics.
please don't. Come with legitimate concerns.
Hey,
We'd like to hear those.
That won't be the next one.
Amy.
All right, where are we going?
All right, Dr. Fox, do you have any questions of what we discussed? And
No, we're good. I'll get a draft that back out to everybody.
okay, all right, so we've done that. Moving on to Ms. Sechrist, claims for payment.
Yes, good evening, board. You all have been provided with the claim certification where the operating fund was $200,894.55. The food service fund, $30,636.92. Total expenditures of $231,531.47. Along with that, you've been provided with the list of claims as well as the check register. If you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Any questions? Hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve the claims for payment as presented?
I make a motion to approve the claims for payment as presented by Ms. Sechrist.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Dr. Painter and a second from Mr. Lansbury.
Mr. Gubler.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Pena.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, the next one is purchase orders for
Yes.
over $10,000.
Board, we have 5 purchase orders for your review over 10,000 this evening. The first one is to Allied Health Services, and that would be using our SPED purchase service funds. Presence Learning is also a special education purchase service fund, as well as the other Presence Learning is for purchase services and supplies for special education. Fourth one is a school bus using ESSER 3 funds. And then the last one is IXL Learning using local technology funds. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
When the bus is to be built, means they don't have one in inventory that we have to wait on receiving it. And would we receive it in time before our budget? Okay, so we'll get it before June or end of June. Okay. Any questions? Okay, hearing no more. Do I have a motion to approve the purchase orders over 10,000?
Make a motion that we approve the purchase orders over 10,000.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Painter and a second from Dr. Painter. I always get messed up on those.
Mr. Metzger.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Gubler.
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan.
Yes.
Ms. Reed.
Yes. Okay, our next, thank you, Ms. Seekers.
Thank you.
The next item is board discussion time.
All right, first of all, I apologize. I'm super antsy because I had a Pepsi and I'm like, I got to get up soon. But I would like to, we had an email sent to all of us today. It's on behalf of Mrs. Bracken at Page County High School. She is wanting to update their current address list for all the veterans in the area for their Veterans Day Assembly to invite people to it. So they would like us to announce tonight that if you can contact the school with any veterans in your family or that you know with their current address so that they can send them an invitation to their Veterans Day Assembly. You can call Page County High School and tell them or email Mrs. Bracken. So her email address would be jbracken, so JBRACKEN at pagecounty.k12.va.us. And I don't know that I told all of you, but I will not be at the next school board meeting for you all to hear all these public comments because I'll be in Denver at the National Gifted Conference that week. Sorry, I'll be like sightseeing and sitting through meetings. So thank you.
Maybe she'll have a big snowstorm.
Yeah.
Then I'll be skiing,
Yeah.
but I will not visit the dispensaries. Okay, so
I would just like to thank our two government students, is that right? From Luray for coming. I know you have to come because of, but I'm glad you were here. And I hope that as you complete your high school year and then you're going to be out in the real world, don't ever be afraid to voice your opinion. And, you know, you heard some things tonight that students are going to be surveyed or whatever. Make sure you do that and encourage your classmates and different ones because you're the future. You're seeing things firsthand. We don't. So I think it's really important that, you know, as much as you can, spread the word. We are interested. I'm probably more interested in what you have to say than some of the other populations that are going to be surveyed because you've seen it, especially through this COVID thing for the last 2 years. So I'm glad you were here this evening. And as I said, as you go out, these things come out, don't hesitate to share your thoughts. You can contact your board member, you know, or whoever, but don't be afraid to do that. It's very important.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
I echo that, and please let your fellow students know that we need to hear from you because that's how we know things. I know I personally have gotten a couple emails from students. So it helps us get insight of where students are and how we can better serve you as a population. So don't ever hesitate to come to a board meeting to speak, to send us an email, to do a public comment, do a written public comment. We will read them. We do need to hear from you and definitely encourage to fill out that survey because we definitely need more input from students to better understand.
and now you have to speak in order to get credit. 3 minutes. Go for it. No kidding.
And I just want to toot the horn for Page County FCCLA for their recognition on Channel 3 this week with the cleaning of the gravestones
yeah.
for veterans. And they've been doing this for at least the last year, maybe 2 years, but, you know, just a great project, and it means a lot to families. So thanks, Mrs. Comer, and all your helpers and everything for getting out there and do that, because it's not an easy task, and we appreciate it.
Any other board members comment?
Well, it's good to have the students here, and I just encourage you, everything they've said, get involved. Get involved in your school. And also, every chance you get to do a public speaking, do it. It builds confidence. Gives you anxiety, all these negative things, but you got to overcome it, and it'll give you confidence. I attended the cross-country meet in districts. That was good to see all that, and it's interesting to see everybody rooting for one another. So Page people were rooting for Bulldogs, Panthers were, you know, vice versa. Go vote. Go vote, because our discussions depend on who wins. It's going to be different in this space. Find out. They talk a lot about education. Find out how they fund things and the promises they're willing to do or what they're committed. But go vote. You got to vote. The teacher work day, thank you for doing that. For all of our bus drivers and teachers and lunch staff, the food services, everybody, administration here, thank you. We've overcome, we survived the start of the school year, and that's huge. And Dr. Fox, you're doing a lot of good things on different levels. I encourage you to keep doing that.
Absolutely.
I'll echo, I want to commend Dr. Fox and her team for providing these really good comprehensive updates. This one tonight was a little long, but you had a lot to cover, and I very much appreciate it. I appreciate her staff's ability to keep the schools running during a very challenging time. Make no mistake, it's very challenging right now. Difficult time for teachers, for kids, for parents. I also appreciate the creative problem solving that we heard tonight in places like food services, especially when we have to think about all the supply chain issues that are existing now. And this is not something that we're going to get out of anytime soon. So kudos to you for that creative work that your team's doing. Thank you.
The supply chain issue is going to be an issue for another year. That's what has been reported to me in the business world, and don't expect this to go away for another whole year. So you're going to be expecting it through 2022, unfortunately. That's what I've been told. So, it's unfortunate. And some areas may not be hit as bad as other industries, but some industries are getting hit pretty hard. So it's unfortunate. But any other board comments? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion?
To go back into closed session and make
Yes.
a motion to go back to closed session.
Second.
I have a motion from Dr. Painter and a second from Mr. Painter to return to closed session.
Dr. Painter.
Yep.
Mr. Gubler.
Yes.
Mr. Ledford.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Snoops.
Yes.
Mr. Freed.
Yes.